So I apologize. I had to log in into the planning department to get this signed up and then of course send everybody the link at the last minute. So it must have been missed when we sent out the agenda. So I apologize, but everybody got on. Matt is at the CMRPC meeting, so he'll be on after that if we're still working. So I gotta have to roll call us. Dan Kusher,
Kusher here.
Ed Prisby,
Here.
Eric Swenson,
Here.
Keisha,
Here.
Brittany,
Here.
and Bruce Spinney is also here. With us tonight is Colleen Roy and Laura. Help me with the last name so I get it right.
Schufelt.
Schufelt. So Ed, I'll let you do the introduction.
Sure, thanks. So as everybody knows, we've got a couple projects going on, and the Grafton Affordable Housing Trust has never actually completed one and brought anything to fruition. I've noticed over the course of the past few meetings, as we're talking about these things, that a number of technical issues have come up that we just don't have the expertise or the institutional knowledge to be able to handle. One with Gsx obviously was the TIF issue, that could potentially derail the Upton Road project, which is our best chance right now for the trust to get some affordable housing on the books under the subsidized housing inventory. The other one, and I think maybe a little bit more obviously, is 25 Worcester Street. Is creating affordable housing with the age restriction on the deed something that we can handle? How do we go about finding developers who are willing to do that and work with us? And if not, what's the next logical step from there? And what are other communities doing that we can mimic? We don't need to reinvent the wheel if we don't have to. And I've had correspondence back and forth with the Massachusetts Housing Partnership since way back in 2014. They were instrumental in helping the trust obtain the $1 million of Pulte funds and pointing us in the right direction with people that could help us do that when those funds were threatened. So I reached out to the Mass Housing Partnership and said, look, we could use some guidance and a few pointers. And Laura was kind enough to write back and say that she'd be happy to be here tonight to see if she could point us in the right direction and answer any questions that we have. So thank you so much, Laura, for coming. And I know I sent you over an email earlier. I don't know if you got it, but if you had any thoughts for us, or if you had any questions right off the bat, or if you want to entertain questions from us, just let us know.
Thanks. So I'll tell you just a little bit about MHP quick, just my 5-second intro. Mass Housing Partnership, or MHP, is a quasi-state agency that primarily we finance affordable rental financing. We also have the most affordable homeowner, first-time homebuyer program, the One Mortgage, and we have the Center for Housing Data, which if you haven't looked at, it's MHP/DataTown. You can go to and find all kinds of demographics about your town. You can compare it to any other towns in the Commonwealth, and gives you some great insight as to the needs and the demographics of your town. And then we have the community assistance team, which I'm the director of. We do trainings and outreach to communities to assist in the production of affordable housing. I do a lot of work with communities who and trusts who have public land that they want to RFP for a developer to develop affordable housing. We have small grants to help with pre-development, so the engineering of the site to find out what the capacity of the site is. If there's, do some kind of test fits, so see what would fit on the site, and working with the whichever group it is that from the community, to put a request for proposals together that is attractive to developers, is financially feasible. I can run back of the envelope financials to make sure that's true and also meets the needs of the community. And some parameters around design and affordability and other things. And when you put land out for disposition, you can't dictate design, and you can't be too prescriptive in anything, but you can put guardrails and standards to be met. So that's a lot of what I do. I'm working on 18 right now across the Commonwealth. So it's a lot of what I do. We also have a couple of planners who help with zoning and inclusionary zoning and other issues. They'll be helping the MBTA communities, which I think Grafton is one that will be mandated to do multifamily zoning in order to be eligible for grants soon. The guidelines just came out. So, and we'll be providing direct technical assistance on that to communities. So that's kind of a stay tuned. So that's what we do. That's what I do. And so I will dig into your projects. I did take a good, to start with the one that's probably not really on the table tonight, the proposal for Gsx, is that what it is?
That's right.
Yeah, so, I mean, my questions would be, it says in here that the proposal doesn't require any public financing. It sounded like in your email that they were asking for funds from the trust.
Yeah, so they're asking for the trust. The proposal right now is for the trust to subsidize a portion of the construction for soft costs at $1 million. Did I have that right, Bruce? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's 900K.
Okay.
Okay. For the,
So we
14
did,
units.
actually, Laura, we did get, I'm not sure if Ed sent it to you. Yesterday, we got a copy of the actual grant proposal. And then we sent it to our council, and then she got back to us, not in time for this meeting or the packet. But I'll send it out tomorrow morning. A distribution schedule stuff, things that have worked in other towns on similar type of deals. There's still a long way to go with it, because the town it doesn't have the ability to grant a TIF. But if you're not aware, the nuts and bolts of it are we're subsidizing some of the soft costs. They're going from what is required at 10% to the 25% of the units being affordable. So they're in an overlay now, which this is the first time it's actually been used in this manner. So it was mixed use. It's almost purely residential now. So it's 120 something unit apartment complex. So we approached them, I think eight months or so ago when this process started, to see how we could get them from 10% to 25%.
Okay. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
I was looking at the 10% going, that's a low number to be asking for any money, but it's certainly not almost $1 million. But yeah, that makes a lot more sense. So then, if they did 25%, then all the units would count on your SHI. That's I'm
Right.
sure
So that's crucial for us.
Yeah. Okay. And they would all be at 80%.
I think that's TBD. I don't think we have a firm commitment on that yet.
And
I think we have a
senior-
lot of bargaining capacity if we actually were able to provide a TIF. Then we could go a little bit below the 80%, which would be probably what the trust wants. But I think we're going to be stuck with what we have, which is better than, of course, nothing.
Right. And it's age restricted.
No, this one is not.
That's
But it is going to be interestingly enough, it is going to be marketed to older residents.
Well, it has to be openly marketed.
Yeah, right. I think what I've been told is GSX is, sort of looking at this, I think what they call the silver wave of retirees, and they're interested in that demographic. It's going to be openly marketed. I'm not wild about, frankly, their angle, but again, like Bruce said, I mean, this is what we've got.
And 10% of 3 bedrooms.
I think so. Is that right, Bruce?
There's a good mix. It's mostly 1 and 2 bedrooms. There's no 3 bedrooms available in their current proposal. Just 1s and 2s.
It's a 100 2-bedroom, 55 1-bedroom, 18 studio, or at least that's the last iteration I had.
And they're only looking to you for funds, or are they looking to the state or anyone else?
Right now, they're just looking to the town. I think it's attractive enough, or my general sense, now I'm not on their development team, their finance team. My general sense is it's going to be lucrative enough as it is. That it looks like they're mostly using LP funds. So, some partnership, private dollars, a little bit of bank money, but it doesn't look like they're going to HUD or anything like that.
Okay.
My guess is that they have the money for it already, and what we're doing is just trying to
Yeah,
get a few more affordable units. They're going to go regardless of what we do.
right. So they're using the overlay district for permitting?
Yep.
Not 40B. Okay. Because if
Which is
this,
nice too, because that's our special permit process. It doesn't go to the ZBA.
okay. Well, you may want to check with DHCD on there, because they would then be determined as local action units to make sure that the 10% 3 bedrooms is not a requirement. It is if there's any state funding or if it's a 40B. But I think you can do 25% and get all of them to count under local action units without doing it, but I would check just to be sure.
So we did ask that question. We got your general sense that it's allowable, and I forget the actual passage of the law that is being used, but we did run this by our council to make sure that they were all going to count.
Okay, all right, and just a caution.
Yep.
All right, well, that's so that's that one. If you have any other questions around that one, I'm happy to answer them around, anything on the affordable side.
Yeah, so they were looking for tax increment financing on this, and I'd never seen this before. And I know that what we're going to run into is we're probably not a community that's going to be able to qualify for tax increment financing for this particular project. But have you seen that happen before, where a developer receives tax increment financing for affordable projects around the state?
Yeah, so if I can remember the name of the program. There's a program for that Mass Housing runs for gateway cities, where you have to give them, they call it a tie because it's residential and not economic development, TIE. So both the community gives tax break, and they're also eligible for up to $2 million from the state in tax credit. And I'll try and remember the name of the program. That's mostly where it's used, unless the project is in a bid district, because a lot of bid districts have TIFs. But they usually, for residential, they usually offset with, a requirement for so many. TIFs are usually offset with a requirement for so many employees or some benefit to the town. So that's why it doesn't, and all residential doesn't usually work. But again, if it's in a bid district, they usually can make the business.
Are there any general requirements for the community as far as like income for the community that would bar you from being a gateway community for a?
So gateway cities, there's 26, 19 and 26, I can't remember. They always go back and forth. Some of them are light that are designated. And it's a static number of how many there are that are designated as gateway cities. And I can't remember all the criteria you have to have, but some of it is qualified census tracts, which you probably don't have. You probably don't have the population that you need to be a gateway city.
So outside of like state endorsed programs, stuff that the DOR regulates, like, can we do local initiatives like abatement programs for offsetting taxes or construction relief? Like just through the assessor's office. Have you seen anybody use that angle?
So there are some communities that have reduced real estate taxes for affordable housing. They have to with the restriction, it would be the value would be less. So their assessed value would be less. So they'd get some break because of the 25% affordables. But there are some communities who have special legislation that allows them to reduce the taxes beyond that. But it does take special legislation, has to go through both the House and the Senate, both at the State House in order to do that. But I'm really familiar. Provincetown has one that's been probably one of the first ones, probably. I think we did it like 20 years ago with them, and others have copied that.
You said Provincetown?
Yes.
Okay.
So they, go ahead, Bruce.
So they have like a homegrown incentive program for affordable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Any landlord of affordable housing can apply to get their taxes reduced.
That's brilliant. Okay. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, I was just wondering if I'm just thinking out loud about grant programs that we can also either apply for ourselves or direct GSX toward to help offset costs for them.
Most of them then would come with a hook. They'd have the 3-bedroom hook. Number one, they'd have to do 10% of the affordables, 3-bedroom for most of them. And unless they were, there's a program called community-based housing, CBH, that would, if approved, it gives up to 50% of the total development cost of a unit. It comes with, usually comes with a voucher, and the units are restricted at 30%, but with the voucher, they pay, the landlord gets fair market rent for them. They are for persons with disabilities and especially elders. It's to keep elders out of institutions, or folks with disabilities out of institutions is really the impetus for the fund. But it's a good, it has a lot of funds per unit. And so you can just add a few into your project and, make it worthwhile. You get market rent, you have, you have to put them most always in a fully accessible unit, are designated those. Um,
And that's
And-
restricted for 55 plus?
It's not, I mean, if the project is restricted to 55 plus, then it would be.
So
But,
that's interesting segue into 25 Worcester Street, which has a restrictor on it.
Yeah, it also, if there's a 2-bedroom, it also allows for a caretaker. So that one's, that's probably the most bang for your buck is that one, and doesn't come with as many hooks. So, like I said, it could be either individuals or families with a member with a disability.
That's interesting. That's appealing. We should poke around at that.
Yeah, the developer would have to be the one to apply for it.
Mhm.
And there's, it's there's a 2-step approval. It has to go through the Mass Department of, I can't remember which one it is. One of the agencies that serves disabled folks.
Okay. Anyone else
Anyone else?
on GSX? All right, it's probably a good time. I think Bruce is a very good segue to move into the discussion on 25 Worcester Street. So just a little bit of background. Back in the spring of 2020, the Affordable Housing Trust was gifted a parcel of land at about 2.3 acres near the center of town at 25 Worcester Street. It came with a deed restriction that the land is to be developed for affordable housing for senior use 55 plus. So we've been kind of poking around at this, and I think the difficulty that we're running into is that in order for a project like this to make sense for both the developer and the trust, there would, number one, kind of have to be a lot of units involved. We think. I don't know that for sure as I sit here, but that's our suspicion. And then the other problem is obviously with the deed restriction on there, DHCD might not include those units in our subsidized housing inventory unless we show a compelling need for senior housing in this particular region. So that's kind of where we sit with that. And our options are to try and proceed forward with this and find developers or to go back to the town and say, look, would you take the deed restriction off and allow us to develop this land for family use? And obviously there's a compelling need for that as well in Massachusetts, in particularly in Grafton. So I guess what my first question is, let me put this a different way. The way I'm looking at this is I think what we should do is go and find a developer who could help us with both things. Number one, with trying to design something that would accommodate a senior housing plan, leave the DHCD issue to the side for the time being, but also have a developer present us with something workable for affordable housing with no age restriction on it. And then I think present that plan to the town and say, listen, here are your options. Do you know offhand of developers that communities have worked with who have been successful in developing age restricted affordable housing?
So let's back up a little bit.
Sure.
The trust owns the land.
Yes.
The trust is a public entity.
Yes.
As a public entity, the way you dispose of land is to do a request for proposals to solicit proposals to developers who would do all the design, permitting, building, and owning.
Right.
Okay. You can't partner with developers because if you do that under Massachusetts law, it becomes a public project. And right now we're seeing public projects add 50% to the cost of construction because of public bidding and filed sub bids. So what I help communities do is put that request for proposals together to get the result that you want and get
Okay.
developers in. Okay, there are developers out there who specialize in 55 and over. GSX has done a lot of them, not so much in Massachusetts, but they're one company, but there's a lot of companies that do it. With several developers that specialize in it, nonprofits specialize in it, especially if it's supportive housing, so it's frail elders, and it has wraparound services. So I guess I think that if your other project, the GSX project, is not restricted to seniors, you have, I don't think you'd get pushback from DHCD on not having, doing only senior housing. Your housing authority is 80 or 90% senior housing. And, I've worked on one family housing project in town. I don't know what else you have that's private. But DHCD really pushes back if all you've done is senior housing, they'd push back on a project. And if you're anti-kids.
Right.
So if everything you're, even if it's not restricted, if you're only doing restricting bedrooms, you're only doing 1 bedrooms, or you're doing 1 and some 2s, that's when they push back and say, if you're discriminating against families with children, which is a protected class.
Sure.
What is, sorry,
was my- Sorry, that was my concern. That was just my concern of not having more family affordable housing, making it age restricted, just based on what the dynamics are of our population.
Yeah, I think that it's, I guess it depends on what if you've done a needs assessment anytime recently, what that shows for need. We can look at Datatown and see what that tells us. It has 2020 census in it. So we have, more up-to-date demographics. But usually if there's, it has to be kind of a preponderance of evidence that all, that what you're doing is discriminatory, so.
our housing production plan was done a few years ago, and it doesn't take into account, of course, the 2020 census.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine it has changed in a substantive way, comparatively speaking. What about, Laura, you said that if you did something that was more like, I'm saying assisted living, it's not the right word for it, but something that has a little bit more to it, that you can probably find somebody at the state to partner with, or some nonprofit group, and there's a lot of subsidy for that. Now, how does DHCD consider that as far as affordability? So if it's 55 plus and it's a small home with assisted living or wraparound care type of thing, and then he said it's affordable, or it is affordable, will DHCD give us credit for that?
Yes,
Okay.
because they would be, they have a special round of funding just for supportive housing that houses, that funds developments that have not just rent, but supportive services that are paid for with state funding in, the affordable units, which a lot of times they're majority affordable units in those type of projects. And the legislature just allocated $150 million to supportive housing. So it's one of those types of housing that's getting a lot of money from ARPA. And I expect there'll be a lot of senior and veterans and homeless production to serve those populations in the next couple of years.
So are they restricted on the style? Are they all single story? Can you have multiple story units?
They're not restricted on style. They're more restrictive. They're probably restrictive as to having some common areas for, in case there's meal preparation or something like that, options. But, and then some office space for confidentiality in case there's, counseling or other services that are provided on site.
What about on-site staffing quarters and things of that nature? Have you seen it be like a completely inclusive?
They're usually 24, sometimes they're 24/7 staff, and sometimes they're, just a couple, 2 shifts of staffing. It depends on the population and the level of in the case of seniors, the level of how frail there's certain programs that supply 24/7 staffing, so they would have offices, staff offices, but they wouldn't have living quarters for the staff.
So who finds the tenants for a facility like that? Will we partner with somebody who has their own client lists, or do they come through the normal channels?
They have to be, it has to be openly marketed.
Okay.
So, but usually they come through, they're nonprofits or service providers would know about it, and they would direct their clients to go, to find it. So it's the landlord, the developer who gets them. But a lot of times they come through service providers.
And then are they actively being built? Are you working on any of these programs now? You said there was a lot of grant money out there for it, but.
So I'm doing one in Gloucester. That's frail elder. The RFP went out last week. So we've had developers pick up, to request the RFP already. So, and both of them are nonprofits that specialize in supportive housing.
Does the land convey in that particular project?
Gloucester is doing a ground lease, I
Okay.
believe.
Are we allowed to convey the property?
Yes. Yes. And so you would have a price proposal that goes along that you, in the case of a request for proposals, you get a package of all the submittals that you want, and then there'll be a sealed proposal. So you score it based on the submittals. And then after you've scored it, you open the price proposal. So you're not taking the highest bid necessarily. You're scoring it on the criteria that you've set up for, design and affordability and developer experience and all those other things that come in.
Can we set the metric for what percentage has to be affordable?
Yes,
in the RFP? Okay.
yes,
Making sure.
absolutely. A minimum.
How big of a parcel is in Gloucester?
Gloucester is topographically challenged. So the buildable part of it is about 1.6 acres, I think.
And how many units are you looking at?
Because they are only looking at 2.5 stories, I think it's 24 units.
Oh, so 48 is not a bad number for 2 acres of relatively open land with access to all the infrastructure.
No, I have one project that's a mixed use that has 58 apartments on 1, 2s, and 3s on 2.8 acres. So, and there's plenty of parking and it doesn't all get used, and there's some walking trails in the back.
It's similar to the density of what some of the ongoing apartment complexes and the proposed projects we have in town.
Mhm.
Does anybody else have any questions along this vein?
So Laura, you had mentioned ARPA funds. Are Affordable Housing Trust in Massachusetts applying for use of those funds?
Through the town, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I think actually Worcester is asking for and has support for $10 million, which is a lot.
geez.
They just approved their trust, so that's a lot. And a few others are getting, $1 million. I think really small towns are giving more than the larger towns, it seems. And then, well, I'm on the Cape, so then we have things from the county. So
Okay.
we have a county.
I'm glad we
Mostly.
have a select board member here. So, because I think they just talked about it on Tuesday, hiring a consultant to how to dole out some of that money. So I guess it would behoove us to make sure we get a message back to the select board saying that we have projects that could technically use some capital. Colleen?
That was a question I was gonna have. Are there any ARPA funds available to help pay to have you as a consultant to do some of the great things you've mentioned tonight?
We offer our services without any cost to the towns. So.
Even better.
Even
Even
better.
better.
Even better. If I was, if, you asked me to help, the first thing I'd do is, if you haven't done engineering on the site, I would get a due diligence feasibility done on the site. Survey, if you haven't had it done, and just some conceptual layouts to see what can fit there, what is palatable to you guys to be there. If
Well,
it's
that's
50,
the rub, Laura, is what's palatable to everybody. So we have done some like phase one engineering. So we did some survey work, some delineation. I'll pass it on to Ed and pass it on to you, just so we can keep the conversation going. But we have a full complement now of membership, and a full complement that's actually showing up to meetings now. So the past 3 or 4 months, as we're looking at actually putting together a project, we have a lot of good participation now. So it's a much better spot to be making these decisions. That being said, does anybody else have anything for Laura?
Oh, this has been extremely helpful.
Extremely helpful.
Okay, well, if you wanted to go next steps with me, I just need a letter from the trust asking for our assistance, and then we can give you an award letter and look at next steps for a request for proposals. If you're ready to start that, since we're doing virtual, I kind of I have a list of questions that I ask the boards to look at and to think about, so that we can get some of the big ticket things. Is it going to be leased or conveyed? Is it kind of rental or home ownership? You kind of told me that. Age restricted family, supportive service or independent living, and then what kind of dimensional requirements or preferences that you have. And then we can talk a little bit about design and affordability. So those are kind of the topics that I'd like to have you think about. I'll send it out if I get a letter and you want me to help you, and then I'll send it out anyway, because it's things you should be thinking about, whether you do it with me or you work through the town or just the trust itself.
Laura, can I ask you real quick, could you describe what supportive service means in layman's terms?
Sure, it means that for elders, it usually means that they have some kind of help with, sometimes it's meals, Sometimes it's activities of daily living. So sometimes they need housekeeping. They can't live independently. Sometimes it's medications, and they have to be licensed to give out medications. But sometimes it's just cleaning, making grocery shopping, those kinds of things. It's not medical.
Okay,
It's
that's what I was wondering. Okay,
it's not medical. So they wouldn't be licensed.
okay.
Or a quick question. In the RFPs, would we lay out like what we would potentially be contributing to an affordable project, or does that usually get worked out after the fact, like in a PNS or something?
Yeah, that gets worked out later. Usually what, because it's another kind of control thing. If you're saying, well, we're gonna give you money to do this, then the Attorney General kind of says, well, then you're controlling what happens, So usually what we put a line in saying the trust would entertain an application for funds. You're
Okay.
not,
Yeah,
you're not,
because at least they know it's possible then.
right.
And most of them who are probably going to be submitting to this sort of RFP are probably expecting that anyway.
Yeah, so in order to get state funds, there has to be a local contribution. So you have land, so you're pretty much,
Yep.
Good on that side, but usually there's a gap. So especially if the costs stay where they are now, hopefully they're gonna get a little better, but we've been seeing really astronomical costs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One more quick question. Would it behoove us to get the land appraised? So we have a general idea of its value?
You have to do it for the RFP, either take the assessed value or have it appraised. So yeah, you'll have to do it at some time if the assessment, doesn't seem to be market. And again, with costs going up with pandemic, I'm not sure about Grafton, but our values have gone up 34% in a year. So
The town has it valued at 160K for a 2-acre lot in town. In a desirable location, you're 2.25, 250 easily. So
yeah, that's low. So yeah, so even if you get a broker's estimate of value, depends what you want to pay for. Both of them are adequate for the value that you need to do for RFP.
okay. Great. If anybody else doesn't have anything for Laura, you, of course, can join us for the remainder of the meeting. There's not going to be too much left to go through, but or if not, we'll reach out soon.
Okay, thanks. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks, Laura.
All right, thanks. Take care.
So just a quick bit of business. The select board chair reached out to me today and asked if we wanted to join them for their February 8th meeting. Colleen, is that correct? The 8th is the next one?
Hold
For
on, let me pull up my calendar.
it would be
Probably.
a joint meeting with the select board and us to go over goal settings and things of that nature, more on their side than our side. I think we have, what we need to focus on, but I think they want to be contributors and be part of the dialogue. And of course, we, the process requires their input, and we want to make sure that we're facilitating good communications and trying to get as much buy-in moving these projects forward as we can. Because, after all this stuff is done, you still have to go to the ZBA, you still have to do the public hearing process, deal with the neighborhoods, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess it's good to keep everybody in the right dialogue. Does everybody have that date available? And if we are doing that on the 8th, do we want that to be our substitute for our regular monthly meeting? And we can break away afterwards, or do we want to do both?
I'd like to do both.
Okay, I think we have enough on our plate now that we could do both. I just want to make sure that we have a quorum there. If we're having a dialogue. So I'll send out an email and just tell me your availability, and I'll reach out tomorrow back to Colleen or Peter and see what the time slot is for what will work, and make sure that I confirm everything, and just don't reply all, and just reply directly back to me. And then I'll get a feel for how many people can go. Gsx updates. So the subcommittee met to go over the grant proposal. We got a draft back from Gsx. It went through our council, who also provided us with some scheduling for distribution. So it's starting to piece itself together pretty nicely. So next month we'll hopefully have something solid to review with the trusts. There are some technical and financial changes that are substantive. For one, you heard us talking a little bit about the fact that we can't give them a regular TIF like we can do for a commercial entity to subsidize things. I went back to them and had some more dialogue with them on, approaches to take, and the subcommittee also had some input. So we'll put together a little bit more of a, a package of options we have. And, but some of them, like abatement programs and other subsidies, we need some feedback from the town to see if they actually work, and they'll provide the remedies we need. So hopefully next month we'll have everything, and we'll try to give you about a week to review it, and, to get comments. I kind of threw it on the subcommittee because it was supposed to come before the Christmas break, and we just got it yesterday. So there was a little bit of back and forth, but the holidays kind of sucked the life out of everybody. Well, work life anyways, out of everybody. Does anybody have any questions or any concerns on GSX? Just so I keep them in the back of my mind.
The percentage change of the affordable units that they're proposing?
No, they don't. We're still focused on the
But still.
25%. We're just trying to find another avenue to get the money that they're asking for. Or if they're going to just be willing to do it at the 900K grant that we're giving them, which is a sizable contribution. The market report for rentals in the Worcester County area was up like 11% from last year. So this should be a pretty lucrative venture for them anyways. So we'll see if it, it's kind of like we send something over. Now we finally actually have something to look at with a subcommittee. Subcommittee can look at it and then get back to them. And then, of course, we need the town to actually sign off or say if it's possible for some of the avenues we want to take. So it's a little bit more time consuming than I was hoping, but it's moving in the right direction. And I think their interests in getting us to the 25% is still there. And I think it's genuine too. So I think that bodes well for us. Okay, so 25 Worcester Street. So, and stop me if you need to, or if you have any other updates for us on other things. But I found a place in Millbury. I actually had coffee with Matt down the street. It is on West Street. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Millbury at all. There's a place called the Cake Shop, Christopher's Ice Cream. All right, so anyway, it's on 9 West Street. I will send it in an email. It is 0.4 acres, and it's an apartment building. It's basically a 12-pack. It's 3 stories, ample parking for 12 units. And it's nice. It fits the neighborhood. For for that particular corner, it's it looks nice. So it's like a real world look at the density that we're looking to do on the 2 acres on 25 Worcester Street. It fits the parking, the lighting, the aesthetics of it are very pleasing. And it was just built and completed about a year ago. So the project started in 2017. I reached out to Clay Street Properties, which is the group, the LLC that actually owned it. But I'm having a hard time actually getting somebody on the horn. So my guess is that was just a holding company and got passed on to some property management company. It looks like the deed changed hands again. So I'm trying to track it down to see who built it, how they went through the process. I reached out to a friend who's on the select board in Millbury, Chris Naff. I'm waiting to hear back from him to see if they can figure out how it fit there, because it's I believe it's by right, or rather not by right, by a special permit, very similar to Upton Street for us. But it's a good look at something that's just been built that looks really nice. I did send pictures last year, but most of you weren't on the trust back then. I'll send it in an email tonight. And if you're getting a chance, you're going through Millbury, throw it in your GPS and take a run by there. It's
Are they all 1 and 2 bedrooms as well, or do we know what?
I actually don't know the makeup. I just know the amount of units. That's what I was trying to find out, but it gives you a good perspective. My guess is they're 2 bedrooms.
And that's what it says on Zillow.
Did you just find it?
Yeah, 1 to 2 bedroom apartments.
Okay.
That was quick.
So I have it on the Millbury GIS, just so I can get the actual land information. On Zillow, Brittany, does it have any contact information?
Let's see.
Anyway, send it to me if it does.
Yep.
I didn't even
I'll
think
look.
that was there.
Has the cost of the units and things, but not.
So I pulled into the parking lot the other day and I flagged down the first person that I saw come out of there to see if I could find out anything. They didn't want to have anything to do with me, so it was a little bit creepy, but
Yeah, I wouldn't want to know.
I had my kids with me, so it wouldn't have been that bad.
Yeah, that's fine.
But they still didn't want to have anything to do with me. So if I can find out that contact information, it is a gem of a little place. It took them a long time to build.
There's a phone number on the picture that says now leasing, so you could probably call them.
All right. Because all the signs like on the actual property itself have come down. So I just assumed that they were fully tenanted out anyways. Okay. It's a nice look, but you got to see it in person. The pictures don't do it too much justice. But my thoughts for 25 Worcester Street for one of those is you could fit 3 of those little 3-deckers in there with parking. And it's kind of what we have demonstrated in the one of the concepts we had. Just you can put like a face to the name type of thing.
Sure. Before we go too much further down this route and somehow communicate to the neighborhood that this is what we're now planning, let's do first thing first here. I'd like to move that the Grafton Affordable Housing Trust retain Massachusetts Housing Partnership and Laura Schufelt for her assistance with developing 25 Worcester Street.
Second.
All right, any discussion? The only one thing we'll do is Ed, why don't you draft the letter or have Dan draft the letter? And any other discussion?
No, I just, I'm a big believer in expertise in particular areas, and to sort of reflect on how we've come this far, it was kind of just a series of events and people wanting to be helpful. Me putting that thing on the ballot a couple of years ago, and us trying to put together, some engineering and have a good faith discussion about what we want to see go there. But I think as we've discovered over the course of the past couple of months, we need some help with this. everything that we say is being poured over by a lot of people who have a lot of concerns. And while I appreciate, throwing out ideas, and I saw this building, what comes of that next. And it's usually a lot of panic. So I would feel 1,000% better if we had somebody with the expertise of a Laura Schufelt, who's free, by the way, that's amazing, sort of guiding us along this process here.
Any other discussion?
I disagree. I agree with him.
I think that's one of the smartest decisions anyone's made.
Dan,
I actually did listen to her. I don't know if anybody else logged in a couple of weeks ago
Yes.
for this. So there's a lot of valuable information. I do
Absolutely.
think
all right,
Absolutely.
let's just get out of this motion and get this voted on, and then we'll continue the conversation. Dan Kusher?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I also think before we go too far into anything else for 25 Worcester Street, I think talking to them and looking more into some of these other options around, I forget the exact correct term is, but the not independent living type of things where there could be more funds available, more easily fit with the senior restriction, that kind of stuff.
Let's Dan, let's engage them first, and then we'll have a conversation after this about what we want them to look at directly. But that's kind of should be an agenda item of its own.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on the particular motion on the floor? By roll call, Dan?
Aye.
Eric?
You're on mute.
Don't be that guy. Come on, man.
Aye.
Brittany?
Aye.
Lakeisha?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Versus an aye, it's unanimous. So Ed, you can draft that. You can sign it on behalf of the trust and send it on its way. Unless you want to kick it over to Dan, he's the clerk, so he loves doing this.
I'll do it. I'll just do it tonight before I leave.
That's fine. So I will add it as an agenda item. Ed, if you could provide that list of stuff she was talking about, of stuff we should look at, so we can get it in the packet sooner the better. Do we want, as we start to build some alacrity on what we're doing, do we want to meet more than once a month? Do we want to break this particular thing off into a subcommittee that meets more than once a month for our regular, our set time? I'm
happy to be involved, either as a full committee, a full trust, or subcommittee. So.
And I definitely think we should meet at least twice a month, just like right now, to get us in a better place, because things are changing so fast, and we want to kind of stay ahead of the curve, and we're already in the motion. We're in it right now. That's just my thought.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can keep the regularly scheduled meeting, which is good for the public too, because and we can restrict some of our decision making. We can add like a workshop if we want to meet in a whole body instead of a subcommittee. Why don't I send out another email so we can get good times for that? Because I know everybody's week's filled up, and it's budget season now, so we ought to FinCon representation and select board representation. So we got to find a night that actually works for that second meeting. So let Dan and I figure out a night that's going to work, and we'll see how that goes. As far as the West Street, still go take a look. Don't wait for, just get an idea of what one of these small little units and complexes looks like, because most definitely it will look something similar to that, even if we're doing the assisted living type of thing, because that's what these things tend to look like.
Bruce, can you screen share that? Can anyone screen share?
I tried, it wouldn't work. Oh, let me see, actually.
I think I got to give you permission to screen share. Give me 1 second.
Yeah,
What do you need, Ed? Like a link?
I was
to
just
the-
wondering if they could screen share it so everybody knew what we were sort of talking about.
Yeah, got it.
Let me see if I can do it. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I'm like a wizard at this thing.
You're amazing.
It's vinyl. I mean, some features I don't like, but what this doesn't give you is the little parking lot that's next to it.
Does it blow up if you click on it?
Don't blow it up.
There you go. It's sweet. It's charming.
Yep.
It's accessible. It's got some accessible units.
Yeah, I know the property well. My in-laws actually live right by there. It previously was just a parking lot, so big enhancement in the land use there.
And if you look over, and this actual property is 0.4 acres. So technically speaking, 4 of these would fit very well there. 3 of course would fit, 4 would fit, 2 would fit, 1 would fit. But I was scratching my head trying to find like a real life look, because you either do like little small things or like really big, like Sotiers, which is really good sized buildings. And of course his aren't built yet, so you really can't get a flavor for those either.
I
So
have some
anyway,
other examples I could send you, Bruce, too.
well,
that
yes, and so I can include them in the packet. If you have good
Yeah.
pictures that give you a good, I figured this one's so close that people could just go to Cake Shop, get a coffee and take a look. Don't talk to the people that live there. They're not. Right, stop sharing. All right, is everybody back to normal?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else before we wrap it up tonight? Get some stuff that will go out to you. Try to be responsive to my emails as quickly as you can. Dan usually has better luck at that, so I might just ask him to do that. But anything else from the select board, Colleen? Brilliant. All right. How does everybody feel about having a joint meeting with the select board? Okay. Let's see. And I apologize, my camera doesn't work, or I don't know. I have no idea. Anyway, let's see. There's some people that actually showed up to the meeting. I'm going to allow them to talk if they want to say something. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand. You can come off mute and ask. Outside of that, we're just going to try to wrap it up here. All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming. And I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Second.
Second.
By roll call, Dan.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Lakeisha.
Aye.
Brittany.
Hi.
Ed. And I'm an aye. Thank you everybody for coming. We'll see you next time.